So, welcome everyone to the yoga class here at Bonnevaux, and there in your living rooms or bedrooms or gardens. We're going to use a chair at some point today, so you may want to just have one nearby. And what I thought I would do today is review some of the stuff we looked at last week, and link it to one of the bigger themes we've been looking at, which is bending forward and bending back with the spine, and starting to understand what your, what really works for your body and where your patterns are. Patterns usually emerge over time as we relax and start performing shapes. And we start to go, wow, how come my body goes so far there, different from Giovanni or Henriette, or the person and the other person in the living room? And how come that part doesn't move, whereas it looks like it does others? So, that has to do with our physiology that we receive, but also with the habits of movement that we're up to. So sometimes we need to go with the body, and over time we realize also that there are areas in the garden that we need to go with a shovel and dig around, because actually that part could move a little bit more, and that's usually discovered over time. It's important to remember that we're all very different. We all have a biology which is similar, but we have bony signatures and tissue length, softness, hardness signatures, and signatures of muscle tonality that make us different from the others. Or similar, you realize, wow, that person moves just like me. So the richness lies there. So we'll be picking up the stepping and rotating theme that we've looked at from time to time, but less. And then we'll make it linked in with the front back rolling or bending of the spine, which is a precursor to rotation. Rotation is a more adult movement. Little babies do more flexion and extension, and then as we mature, if the space feels safe, we discover, that we're behaving not like this. I brought you a present, or flexion and extension, but we're actually, saying, oh, I love you, or here's some flowers, or hey, stop, you're in my way, or whatever. But there is a rotationary, penetrating in space movement that is more typical of adult life. So let's stand up before we really disappear into the siesta time. Yeah. Let's stand up. Why don't you take one of theirs and Luke's got one. Yeah, so using a chair is a sign of very advanced yoga, and a sign not that you're becoming elderly, but a sign of elderhood, which means wisdom. And you realize that sometimes props sign consent. So I just put the chair in front of you, slightly away. Am I okay? So just a little bit away, and we're just going to just take a moment just to close the eyes and feel our feet. And put your hands on your hips or on your breastbone, things that you like to do. Sometimes when I'm very busy, my back gets very arched, and I just feel it's just really nice to touch my lower back. So you may like to put your hand on your head, on your belly, whatever. So in yoga, this is called a mudra, where you make a gesture that closes on your own body, and that helps you to begin to come near, to stop looking at or doing words, but to come near and to be surprised by your own wonderful body, whole person. And then if you close your eyes, if you feel steady enough on your feet to close your eyes, if not, you could not close your eyes or go near a wall. But if you close your eyes, so if we diminish the visual field, we augment the gravity field that we are always sensing through our inner ear and through all the weight receptors in our body, all these pressure receptors. We have millions under the feet, for example, where we're touching with our hands. So we let the sense of my weight in this world, my weight on this earth, come forward. And then you notice, don't do your breathing, just notice, oh, okay. Oh, so I'm breathing more in, I'm breathing more out. I feel my body swaying. And then you may notice certain areas release. Me, it's my shoulders and my lower back, for example, that they go, oh, okay, I didn't have to do so much. It could be your thighs or your ass or your cheekbones or your jaw. And then you may feel other things turn up the temperature on tone or holding, which is a good thing. So you notice a shift. Oh, something settled in my shoulders and something's much more awake in the back of my neck. That's what happened to me. And then I noticed, oh, so now there's a bit more out breath and I'm less in the top of my breath. So those are signs of nearness, noticing that this extraordinary pattern of being upright can change and shift. And that's very healthy. Very, very healthy. Some of these discomforts in the belly and in the chest come through this chronic holding that's extra. That is linked to psychological narrative or an accident, but actually the body's trying to move on and we're still there doing that thing. So yoga practice is not really about touching your toes or levitating, although those are amazing things. But mostly it's this befriending that starts to happen where you change happens and that's a sign of health. Okay. Yeah. So just let your hands run up and down the front of your body, thighs, pelvis, belly, chest, throat, chin, face, top of the head. And then let your hands also run down the back of the head and neck, down between the shoulder blades, down the back.
Is it like there?
Huh? Well, no, you were, your eyes were closed. Me too, I only went that far, and then I went like that. Yeah, and then down, and maybe just letting your knuckles sink into your kidney area, which is just kind of where your last ribs are back there. Yeah, that's it. And then that's what Henriette did. I bet you're doing the same. You're probably at certain moments arching a bit, and at other moments resting into flexion a bit. So just let that happen, don't worry. Just notice how the weight shifts through the legs. The weight can pour in lots of different places through the legs. And then there is the blessed, beloved, and sacred buttocks. So just touching the buttocks. Yeah. And down the legs. Now, here we are. So let the knees bend. Let your tail be heavy. Yeah. So part of discovering movement that's participatory and not performance-oriented is that you have room to feel sensations that are pleasurable, unpleasurable, and wonder about them. So that you get more and more used to going, hey, that doesn't feel right, that kind of feeling. I don't know what that's about. So that's how our movement
practice deepens, not because we're afraid, but we start to actually learn how the body moves. So we're going to drop all the way down over the thighs, let the head drop. So lower back injuries, you know, be careful. Just this is early in the class. That's why my knees are bent and my toes are awake. I'm touching my toes. I'm letting my head hang. And then we put our hands on our knees and we come up. So you only release as far as feels right. This is a wonderful, relaxing position that is actually shockingly alert-making to the spine. The spine starts to go inside, so we should get used to listening to that. Yeah. So we're just going to fold again, but this time we're going to go a little bit closer to the chair, and we're going to release the knees and release the pelvic floor, the genitals, the anus. Let the tail be very heavy, and your hands will reach the chair, and there is this rich moment of touching. Yeah, huge feet touching the ground, huge hands, knees slightly bent, and if you watch me, I'm just swaying a little bit forward, a little bit backwards. So when you have a prop, you make much deeper front bends than when you don't. So let's just pay attention, I can feel there's a tenderness in my upper lower back. You know, I had a back injury a long, long time ago, but I know that this is just connected to my way of being me in the world and being tense around dizziness and stuff. Okay, so this may be your limit, or even like you see the chair I have has these sides. So maybe being up here or even being up here is your limit, you know. But if you want to go a little bit further and rest your whole forearm onto the chair. Yeah, so we're making a mudra, we're closing the gesture, we're in bound flow. We're not just hanging off the spine, we're actually touching and resting on a chair and moving slightly forward and backwards. And I bet that you can feel things changing in your feet. I'm just going to, not that as a rule, but just because we talked about that habit, right? But bring your heel a little bit more. Yeah. You feel? So if you're a bit wider here, you do something, you see, which is not your normal thing. No. And then you let go. You let go here. Is it comfortable? Yeah, it's fine. I'm quite stiff at my lower back. You are, but it's also, we have a similar standing habit. It's turned out and archy and collapsing. So this is completely different, you know, as long as it's not too painful. No, that and having a heavy tail starts to move this part of your spine down. Yeah, it feels very solid. Yeah. It's going to be, you know, muscles that are used to hanging in there forever. Yeah, how is that? Great. Yeah. And then last time, if I remember, yes, you remember. So we said that there's a tendency to be more like that, which is fine, but that's, you know, how that starts to be, which is also fine. But then in yoga, without overcorrecting, you can just play with that, you see? Yeah, and then you could move, or you could rest more on the outside of your foot, but it shouldn't be too intense. That looks good. Yeah, but that's the problem of insoles, and then the foot becomes passive. Yeah. See, and then you can move your toe. You see that? How amazing that is? Might need help with your fingers. Yeah, you must use your fingers. Yeah, that's it. See? And then we bend it forwards. We're letting the tail be heavy, and we're letting the antlers be heavy. And you could bend a little more. Is that okay? And just lift up. And then don't come up floating. Come up walking your hands up your thighs. Just because if you release deeply, you need to, that's it. That's great. Come all the way up. And then we're here, we're kind of up, and then we just let the arms float up.
And that starts to bring us into other movement, which is more back bending. And don't rush into the shape. Just the arms come up, the legs are rooting, and then the upness of the arms, it's up to you. You can just rest here, or you can just take it a little further. Breastbone starts to go up, throat. If you widen your arms too much, we've talked about this, then you rest in your shoulders. So instead, if you bring your arms together, you don't just rest in the shoulders, you actually move the upper parts of the spine and neck. Those top two ribs begin to move. Yeah, and you discover that you're going up, and of course to go up, you have to go down, you have to go up. So bending and straightening the legs, kind of just reminds you also that you have roots and weight and feet. And as your bull's tail grows and hangs down, so do your finger wings grow, and your breastbone opens up. That's great. And then just, when you get up into, just letting the head, you don't want to throw it away, but you want it to just come back. Yeah. And then what happens is this area moves. Right up in there, goes right up with your fingers. Yeah. That's it. So the more we make roots into the feet, the more we find we have wings. As we find we have wings, the more we grow our roots. So there is no correct direction. It's not like you have to have roots in order to have wings. You might be an albatross that is making carrot roots, or you might be a carrot that is discovering that it has albatross wings. So, yeah. Some of us go up to land, and some of us land to go up. Yeah. Beautiful. And so find your own way, and that's nice. As you come down, I find it easy to touch my head. I start to compute, your arms are coming down. Let go in the throat, the chest, the breastbone, the ribs, the liver, the stomach. Let the head come forward. Let me just rest on the armrest. Let me sway. I might adjust my feet a little bit, step back a bit. Huge toes, lots of release and length from heel to toe, knees releasing, space around the anus and the sit bones, going down as far as you walk, using the support so that the layers of the spine have a chance to respond without you rushing into traction or hanging off something too quickly. Yeah, and what you do with your antlers is important. So it's not about tucking the chin in, although you can do that, but the end of the range there is, it's an effort as well. Letting the head hang has something to do with, it's more about the front of your forehead and the bones of your upper jaw, your maxilla. There's something in there that hangs forward and through. It's not about the very top of your head. Beautiful. Feet, toes, weight, breath, folding, supported. This is a challenging movement for the spine. So you should never push it. It's not like a back bend. Back bend is safer. Deep front bending is asking the body to make a very profound movement, and it's asking for the deep, deep movements of the spine, the discs. It's asking for something that we should never force. Yeah. And it's problematic when it's loaded. So the deeper you go, the better it is that you're resting on something like this, or you're kneeling in child's pose, until you have a sense that you know where you are that day with your practice. Okay, so take your time. You're going to unfold up by walking up, allowing the head to come up later. The eyes can be open or closed, so no one's watching the picture of how it should be, you know. And then as your arms go up, you haven't lost your tail. So you can still be bending the legs, you can still be wobbling the tail, feeling, you're not tucking and staying and doing a right movement or flattening your lower back. It's just roots are happening and then arms are coming up. And then there can be this extension, this back bend, this letting the sky lift you. This is really what in-breath does. In-breath lifts and opens us into extension. And out-breath empties and curls us down. You know, these are the two things. So that's it. And just let it come up and feel it. And I would make the fingers be real extensions of your heart and lungs. You feel the difference? So that's saying something in the audience. This is really like opening the path from the fingers into the casing of the heart and the lungs. Movement of arm and movement of heart, you know, not only bring world peace, but you live longer, because that whole thing moves. Yeah, let's take it a little further. So huge oak tree carrot roots, aubergine, sweet potato roots, huge, and then really let your torso come up and open. Now, the movement must be climbing up your spine, so don't just bend in your lower back. If you have a friend that you're practicing with, a family member, or if your dog speaks or your parrot speaks, they can help you also. You want to make sure that the movement is traveling up your spine as you bend. So it's not just in the lower back. You can see in Henriette, as I touch, you can feel it, right? As I touch her, her upper spine, you see that? It lifts and opens. Yeah, that's where we're going. And of course, if the arms get tired, you let them slide down. You just let them slide down. Now, is that okay? Yeah, how is that? Ooh. Yeah. Just take a moment, breathing, standing. Yeah. And we'll just go for a little walk. Just see what's different from when you came in to now. What's different? One of the things if you walk between a bit of practice, it's nice to do ordinary movements. So you practice a bit, and you go to the fridge and open it and have a piece of chocolate. Ordinary, so you walk to the window and look up. What you may start to notice is, oh, something is moving more. If you walk a little bit, accelerate a bit. So when we walk, we should see a sweet counter swing of arms and legs and a counter rotation of hips and shoulders. Not that you do it, you know, that's it. But there is, or you can do it a tiny bit. You can do it a tiny bit. But, yeah, so if you...
Sorry, you're feeling all moving around here.
In one shoulder.
Both shoulders, it's like very free.
Wonderful. You see, if you often go to that turned out lean back thing, then this is going to be, this is like a brace. I mean, it's even more like a sofa. It's like you lean, like lean on me. Yeah. It's like you lean back. Yeah. So then when you walk, this never moves. Yeah. That's what
no, that's what I'm very aware of it being much freer.
Nice.
And the weight of my arm kind of swinging it around.
Okay.
I want you to explain about this business about feet.
Yeah, which is what?
Well, later on. You must say, because I always tend to explain my feet, and you said think more about having why that is.
Well, it's just that if you don't know that it's not just the feet. You and I have a more external rotation.
Yeah.
So usually external rotation of the legs, you can try on yourself. Usually it makes the pelvis go forward. and it makes the upper gravity center go up. Okay? Internal rotation does the same. So if we all want to just do this for 1 minute, bear with me. We're just going to jump up and down. Right, just jump up and down. Now turn your legs up. See what happens? You start to go back. Now turn your legs in. You see, you start to go forward.
Yeah.
So that's more congruent there or there, and then we do opposite things to brace ourselves.
The other thing I notice is the base of my spine is always kind of.
That's right, because this and this means this is a shaft.
So I hate standing up for a long period.
Yes, and it's an area of tension and too much movement, too little movement. Yeah, and it's different for her. Okay, so we even did jumping. Yeah, so, but it's not the thing you should always stand like that. It's just you can enjoy going, oh, yeah, that's...
No, but it's just interesting that it takes the strain off the lower spine.
It will, because...
My normally response is to sit down.
That's right, because when you do like this, you just go like that.
Yeah.
If you internally rotate a bit, you start to open this area.
Yeah.
But it's a pity if it becomes a judgment on yourself that you can't be there. You can, it's just that you know it has consequences. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's just swing here. So we did this last time. We saw that we could bring the spine, the upright body into swirly rotations by making it happen from the arms, from the hands. If you imagine you have weights in your wrists and the weights are swinging, so I can see that all of you are moving from these plutonium bracelets that you have around your. Okay, let that come to rest. Okay. So let's do the same movement but different, because it's the ankles rather than the wrists and feet. It's the wrists and hands. It's the ankles and feet that are making me move. So what you're doing is you're making your feet rock like that. This is the under ankle. We have an upper ankle that bends us in this plane. But we have an under ankle that makes the foot do this. Yeah. Wonderful. And of course, eventually that spiral can travel up the body and can involve the arms. Yeah. And if you make your arms take over, it's obvious, because then I can see. Yeah. Now your arms are doing it. If you let your arms follow and you make it more about your feet, ankles, legs.
It's quite weird just making your arms fly out by twisting your ankle.
I know, but walking is this movement. We step on the outside of the foot, we load the foot, the whole leg internally rotates, and we propel. So when we walk, we are doing this all the time. But if you are too out or too in, you're in the way of that. So then it's exhausting.
And you look like Charlie Chaplin.
Or the opposite. Yeah. Great, so then just take a step forward. Just a little step forward. And now we're going to turn the whole body from down in the feet and ankles towards the back leg. So you look around over your shoulder that way, down there. And then we're going to turn it the other way. Oops. All the way around. Try to do it through the feet. So you can actually roll onto the edges of your feet. And then we go the other way. Yeah. Okay, so that's one way to start to spiral and go in the direction of walking. But let's now, you notice that if we go completely in one direction from down there, my upper body has remained the same. It's here, and then I rotated my ankles and it's here. So what if I try to make a rotation happen a bit higher up? For that to happen, I let my feet, my pelvis and legs just remain a stable triangle. So they are not going to move. They're not going to prevent me, but they're not going to move. Yeah. No. Then I put my hands on my ribs. And now I'm going to turn ribs, hands, arms, and shoulders, but not below, or maybe just a tiny bit. But I'm going to just turn the upper body. Yeah, that's it. So now it's the same thing. I can look behind me, so I can see, I can reverse the car, but the whole base hasn't changed, right? So now you feel a very deep movement happening in the middle of your body, around your lumbars and belly. Okay? And that's what we want. So we're just going to turn the upper body, the lower triangle is stable, and the upper triangle rotates one way. Let it travel all the way up the neck and out the gaze. And then we go the other way. Again, stabilizing through the feet and pelvis, rotating. Brilliant. And come back. Yeah, and we're going to do the same, but this time we're just going to lift the arms. So lifting the arms gives us room in this middle place where we want the rotation and counter rotation to happen. You can see my shirt gets pulled one way. Yeah, that's what we want to do. And we want to have deep roots and heavy heels and big toes and a wonderful tail hanging off the back of the spine. And the arms want to give us lift up so that we're lifting and turning. Lifting and turning, free in the neck and head. And this time we're going to let the arms go up, so we have an upper triangle, an upturn triangle, and a downturn triangle. And you're going to turn both ways, towards the back leg, and towards the front leg. So David, your heels are in a line, that's why you're wobbling. So if you widen,
They're supposed to be another way.
no.
Oh, you mean,
Yeah, if you have a bit more room straight, that's it. Right, you'll have more stability. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and now that looks great. Now you're moving your back, you see.
Yeah.
Now your back is moving and you're making your ankle do something new. And we're just going to make a sound. So, and then, you can throw your arms. You're a step away from singing Valderine as you go walking. So that's what walking is. Swinging and counter swinging. That's beautiful. 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 Yeah, beautiful.
I just realised what all those weird Egyptians do.
Yes.
All day walking yoga.
Yeah. Well, Vanda was studying the Egyptians a lot.
I mean, that pose is absolutely classic.
I know, and the heels, and they have lots of standing and back bending poses. They were up to something, and it all came out of their heels and their mobile spines. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Okay, so we're gonna let's change feet. Step forward.
So are we weighted on the back foot or the front foot?
So good point. So in the triangle poses, the weight is on the back foot. There are other variations, the warrior and the moon poses, where the weight comes forward. So the weight is on the back foot, a little bit on the front foot. I have a bit of pelvis space. You know, I'm aware. If one of you turned out, then just be aware. If you realize you do that all the time, then play with it. Yeah. And then we're going to put the hands on the ribs, and we're just going to turn towards the back leg. And enjoy what happens through the spine, especially where the back leg comes up into the pelvis. It's very interesting. Yeah. If you make your whole pelvis and lower legs turn, then you won't notice that. But if the lower triangle is stable and the upper triangle is adapting and moving, you start to discover very interesting things coming up on the back leg, up into the pelvis. Then we're going to turn towards the front leg, turn, feeling close to yourself, letting the breath, and we can come back. And then we can just open the arms. Yeah. So, of course, you could do this palms up or palms down. If you rotate your arm, it changes. Watch me. If your palms up, you're going to tend more towards extension. If your palms down, especially if it involves the elbows, you're going to open the back, and you may like, I'm a little bit like that, so it's quite nice. I go up this way, but it can be quite nice to rotate my arms up to the elbows and feel that I'm widening the tissue under my elbows. And then I'm going to start throwing my arms and throwing and throwing and throwing. Hooray. And there should be this look of hooray on your face. Yeah. Losing your balance is the best part. Yeah, so throw, great. And just watch where you see you're even crimpling up the mat. Yeah. So your leg is dying to do the turn up. And so you just
shouldn't really be doing that.
It should, because that's your pattern.
I'm actually feeling quite a lot of pain in my knee.
That's right. So
Something's wrong.
If you make your step a little smaller and get your heel out a little more.
Heel out.
Yeah, just a little. Yeah. And then just feel my foot. Yeah. Okay. Yes, you see.
Still twisting at the knee.
Yeah, but that's because you just do less, because your body doesn't know. Yeah, that's very, it just doesn't know.
Stop trying to pull my shorts up.
There, look, just relax your feet. I won't be too fast, so you have time. Yeah, do you see? Yeah. So what's wonderful is your pelvis is doing something new, so your legs are. Within your pattern and range, that's the richness of it.
Yeah, I think I'm quite stiff.
Yeah, you are, but also you're very mobile. So, okay. Great. Just take a moment to see where you are and how it feels. Okay, so if you step forward with the first leg,
which is the first?
One of the legs, if you remember, it doesn't matter if you don't, you step forward. Yeah, and then you make a bigger step. Now that you've stepped forward with your leg that is now in front, you make a bigger step by inching back with the back leg. So you come onto the front leg, and then you just inch back a bit onto your heel, take a feel where you are, and then maybe do it a bit more. And there will be a moment where it becomes big enough that you need to bend that front knee. So you bend that front knee a bit.
You keep going until we need to bend it?
No, I think you're there. Yeah, okay. Because you'll just turn out and do the splits eventually. Yeah, so you want to bend. And then we're going to put our hand on that front knee, and we're just going to lean back into that back hip. So stay near to yourself. You can watch us. You don't need to get it right, but you'll hear that, like we did last time, that there's themes connected to this. The back heel rooting, the step that you're taking. You can put your hand on your tailbone, your other hand on your knee, and you want to lean into that back hip as you bend into the front. So your legs are doing opposing movements. You feel that, right? One is going back and the other one is bending forward. And how Egyptian is that? Hand on your tailbone. And then we drop the elbow to the front knee. So now I feel like I don't have a big enough step. So I just move my back leg back a little more, but not so much that now I can't really be on my front knee. So I've got elbow pouring weight down into front heel, but I'm really on my back knee. Maybe I went too far. Yeah, look at my spine and my back. If I wasn't really resting, I would be flexing and extending at the same time in intention, and you would see it and hear it in my voice. But if I rest my elbow, I release the spine, and then I start to have length within this pose. Huge foot, long direction out through the antlers, out through the tail, look down at the big toe of the front foot. And then we're just going to let the arm come up. Yeah. So if you look at the videos when they're uploaded, and you go to the previous class, you'll see we did this much slower in many more parts. So you can
That might help also if this is the first time you're joining. Yeah. Look down for now, but you can also look out and up. Okay, then the arm comes down, watch me. I'm going to put my hands on the chair so you can go and get your chair or get closer to your chair. And then I'm going to come up onto the front leg as it straightens. And I'm going to let the back leg dangle off my spine. So toes are resting on the floor, and I can dangle my leg. Do you see how I'm rotating in? But I'm very much standing on the front leg. You might even feel up the deep back of the back leg. You might feel nervy, sciatic feeling. It's all okay. And then I'm going to start to lift the leg. I can come up onto the armrest if I need to. Watch me. You don't want to do it with your spine. That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, knee trembling is good. Don't want to arch too much in your back. You want to kind of lift the leg and stay long through your spine. Watch me hold onto the chair with the same arm as the leg that's on the floor. And then start to play with turning and opening. You can let go of the chair. If this is risky, do it near the wall. Yeah, and we're just gonna, it's like a balloon between the leg and the arm is lifting us. This is great. It's because you're finding the turn of your leg. Do it again and you watch it. Okay.
Just couldn't control it. It's like it's the same knee trembling.
Yeah. Straighten the leg a bit. Yeah.
It starts to get it. It's almost like you kind of shoot back.
Just let that open. You see? Yeah. Just didn't know how to.
No, it's just sort of tension.
Yeah. But the tremor is fine if you're not embarrassed.
No, I'm just curious. I couldn't control
That's great. Yeah. There is obviously going to be a look of wonder on your face. Yeah. See where my hand is on Henriette down here? You want to lift here. You felt that? You want to lift. Otherwise, we shorten here on the hips. You want to lift. That's why this is called moon pose. Ardha Chandrasana. The moon is rising in the sky. So this is the moon. And you're lifting the whole time. Yes. What's beautiful is you started to balance, like the chair became secondary. Okay, is that okay? Yeah, nice. So we're going to do the other side. Just take a moment just to swing and also just to be quiet. And just to feel how that side has opened up or closed down. And then we bend. I release the knees. I make that step. So remember, try not to get your heels in a line because then you're doing a different thing. It's okay, but it's different. Keep that pelvis space. Get a bit of distance. Then you can adjust later. And then you might rest your hand on the knee, the other hand on the sacrum, and just let yourself into the bending of that front knee and the going forward. That's it. So you both have it now, all three of you. Yeah. And going back, yes, that's it, David. Yeah, that's it, Henriette. So you want to reach back into that back sit bone while you go forward, these opposing forces. And then we go down onto the knee with the elbow. Again, don't succumb to just coming forward. Yeah. Yeah, if you start to come forward, you're doing the warrior poses. If you stay on the back heel, you're doing the second group of variations in triangle pose, which is with the bent knee. Great, and then we let the arm float up. Arm floats up. If you just find what you need, is the stance big enough, etc. Am I stable? Then, let the arm float up. So have a look, those of you, last time we looked at this. So when you're in the position and you want to involve the arm, if you come up the back way, you could end up locked this way. And then that's it. So what you want to do is you want to let the arm come up and come a little forward so it derotates. And then instead of being stuck here, you're actually here. And then you have this whole world up here where you can wave open, and it opens the chest, and you're looking down at your big toe. Yeah. And from here, we do go forward. We bring the hand onto the chair. We straighten that front leg. That's a process. So because you're flexing forward, if you don't start to lift, you will feel a not so good feeling, like the leg can't lengthen. Yeah. So you want to lift up out of the hip, and the back leg starts to come up. So you are rooting, but you are lifting. That's what's amazing about how we get vertical. And that leg has come up. Be very aware if you have lower back issues, and even don't do, just lie on your back and wait till we do something else. And then we start to open. We start to open and raise the arm if that works for us. If this is all really new or it's too much, don't do this part. Keep opening, keep opening. So keep lifting here. So we're not tightening and touching our toes. We're actually lifting up, opening, opening, opening. So that's it. That's it. Doesn't matter what the rest looks like. Yes, yes. That's it, Henriette. And you're going up. You're going up in these joints.
Yeah.
Up, pelvis. That's beautiful. That looks fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. And then just fold forwards into child pose on the floor and just have a break. Your knees could be together. Your knees could be more wide apart, depending on what you need. And the chair is right there. So if this has always felt horrible because it's too compressive or your hips feel bony, you can, always bend forward towards something. And as you settle down, just bring your hands and put one hand on top of the other and rest your forehead in your hands. So your forehead, the space where nose becomes forehead, frontal bones, just right there. Just rest that on one hand on top of the other. Just rest. Little movements of the head, little releasings inside the mouth, the back of the tongue, letting the jaw hang. So you might be surprised as you discover that the tone along your back, or areas of tone along your back that sometimes just feel like they're never going to let you in, they're related to particular ways of holding and tension in the jaw or floor of the mouth or in the floor of the pelvis. So I can feel that as I let go my jaw to my upper jaw and my tongue, I can feel a relationship to this area just below my ribs here, where on me it's hard and tense. And for you, it may be another area. You may notice that one leg folds more than another, or that your pelvis is tipping slightly one way or the other. And these are beautiful, really beautiful realities in your garden. You don't need to worry about them. Nice to get to know, to inhale leg is bigger, or it's like a bigger heart. So signature and movement habit, for me, that's really a little gate of health that has opened up. And it means that you've entered in and you've started to go, that's really interesting. Not that's really wrong. It's just really interesting that it's leaning that way. And no wonder I can't really bend that way. You see, then the richness of movement opens up. None of us are symmetrical. All of us are spinning one way or the other, turning, leaning.
Studying how strongly I've internalized that there should be symmetrical.
Yeah.
Everything should work the same.
Yeah, because we're visual and verbal. So then we have this visual, verbal, orthogonal world, which is what we built. It's not, nature's never like that. I mean, that's why when you go to Rome, the higgledy-piggledy streets are much more interesting than the thing Mussolini built in front of St. Peter's. I mean, that's deadly. But all of that curlicue, because it's more organic. I mean, that's what we like about gardening or going for a walk in the countryside. And I think it's wonderful to discover that in movement. And if you teach movement, of course it's helpful to correct, but we should never overcorrect or guide people towards symmetry, because accentuating symmetry means that you are swallowing the strain. You're not letting it out. You want to let it out. Of course, don't want to go too far into one direction. Okay, how are you doing? Yeah. So we're going to just push the chair away a bit more. So we have more of the mat. We're going to pick up the very, very first things that we did, which is we're going to just sink back again, back into child's pose, this very soft front bend. If you have an injured back, this is not necessarily a good thing to do. So you may want to have a bit of support from your chair. And then from here, we're just going to start walking forward with the arms. And as you walk forward, you feel the bum going up. Just don't rush. So there is a moment where you've gone bottoms up and head down. You know, this is what happens in the Dead Sea. Everything was fine, and then suddenly you're floating with your bum in the air and your head is down. You have to figure it out. So here we are. Now turn the toes under. Your bum is in the air. And just squeeze your anus for a moment. Squeeze, and you'll feel that you pull your sit bones towards each other. Now relax your anus. You'll feel it's as if the two sit bones are allowed to lean away from each other. That's what we want. Then we keep walking forward with the arms, and we keep going forward. We rest the forehead in the floor, rest the arms into the ground. And we're going forward and forward. Don't keep going so that your upper legs, your thighs are vertical. They should be leaning back. And now your bum is in the air, your toes are curled under. You have a squirrel's tail, no longer a heavy wolf's tail, but a flying squirrel's tail. And you're pouring your spine in a long, easy, open back bend towards the floor, resting on forehead, nose, a little bit of elbows. Widen or do what you need for your shoulders so that the shoulders are not struggling. Beautiful. Beautiful. And the toes are part of this. So the toes, the bending of the toes and the life of the toes wakes up the pelvic floor. And it's a conversation that you've had since you stood up as a little kid. Feet to lower back and pelvic floor. That's what happens is the lower back doesn't exist until the little child gets up on its feet and starts to exercise those arches that the lumbar spine is formed.
the lumbar spine and the neck curves are really signatures of how we are in the world. It's very beautiful, and it's a pity when we judge or we say you should flatten or you shouldn't stick your bum out too much, because you know our curiosity and our kind of wonder funkiness is in those curves, and we should celebrate each other's curves, I would say. So here you are, bum in the air, sit bones widening, spine dropping through. So for me, this is one of the basic movements to correct lower spine issues, which we all have. We'll do the other one that precedes this in a moment. Just letting your sit bones and squirrel's tail go up, letting your pelvis tip forward, and letting your lumbars hang one off the other in this spacious, gentle curve. And then letting all the layers of tissue of your rib cage, all these muscles of the back, and then the ribs and bones themselves also release. So we are releasing ourselves away from our iPhones, because nobody works on their iPhone like this with the iPhone above your head. Everybody picks up their phone and goes into flexion, and then types on the phone and doesn't realize that day by day they're about to fall headlong into the World Wide Web. But this is a movement away, you know? It's away. We're doing this, that lift arms and open chest. Yeah, so very beautiful to see. And now you're just going to walk back slowly all the way back into childhood. And go find your way so that as you go back, you feel the pelvis tilt. That's it. As you go back, you feel the pelvis tilt. You undo the toes. Yeah. And you start to get to know the areas that never move. The areas that don't move. Could be the lower back, the middle back, the upper back, or more on one side and more on the other. Yeah. And this time, we're going to, if you're not comfortable, stop here. If you're not comfortable here, climb halfway up onto the chair, all those things. Yeah. This time, we're just going to let the arms go back. You need to be really comfortable to do this. If you have worries about whiplashes in the neck or lower back issues, don't need to proceed. Then you're going to grab hold of your heels with your hands. So here I am doing it. I go back, my arms go back, and I find my heels, and I just turn my hands. I hold my heels, and then I gently pull in. I pull my forehead in towards my knees. And you really curl in. You curl your chin into your chest. This is a mudra, but it's working what in Sanskrit is called the bandhas. We might call them the diaphragms. So as you curl into this rabbit pose, if you don't have injuries, you're actually squeezing each diaphragm, the foot, the back of the knee, the floor of the pelvis, the breathing diaphragm, the thoracic aperture, the floor of your mouth, everything. You're gathering and squeezing them all in, and then there's a moment where you want to let go. So just let go. Let go. That's it. And your spine will naturally lengthen. Did you feel? Your breastbone will go a little forward on your knees. So now lengthen a bit more as you walk forward with your arms, so that eventually you're lying in child pose with your arms forward. As long as you can be, but folded. So I'm going to run over just a tiny bit. If you just walk forward with your arms, like we did a moment ago, do it in your own way. You're walking forward. As you walk forward, you feel your pelvis come up. Curl the toes under, hook the toes in, and be in this bottoms up position, letting your rib cage open. And just take that in for a minute. When you've had a few breaths like this, come on down and lie on your back. But just take that in for a minute. Where you were, this is the second time we did this. How you got here. Don't worry if you're doing the right or the wrong thing. Really don't, because it's not helpful. Just, you can see what we're doing here in the room. And then, but
that's just an indicator, and then you can play with that. And if it's too strong, you can have your upper body on the couch or on a chair, but you're basically bum up, whole spine dropping off, letting your ribs hang, letting your arms rest into the ground, toes roll. Just let that in, let that in, let that in. It's the opposite of flexing forward and controlling your world. It's the opposite of all those flexor muscles behind your eyes, in your fingers, in your chest, in your belly, in your thighs. Flexing. Yeah, it's the opposite. Great. And then we're just going to lie on our backs. And we'll just close with this movement that we've looked at a number of times. It's a very passive twist. Legs are bent, feet are on the ground. Yeah. Arms are wide. Huge feet awake in your toes. Lovely wobble in the head. And remember what we did, swinging on the lower ankle from side to side. Well, look, it's the same thing. If your legs go one way and the other way, just a small movement, and you're rocking through into the foot, you notice that a spirally movement starts to travel up your spine. Of course, your arms can't swing because you're on the floor. And if we go all the way one way, we get a beautiful spiral and back bend, which is very, very safe. If it's too far or you have pain in your adductors or whatever, you can put cushions under your leg or just your hand. But otherwise, let yourself go. Let the back belly go, so the belly releases and the back bend travels up the spine. Yeah. And then we look away from the knees, so we look the other way. So the spiral travels all the way. And then we come back through the middle. Enjoy the whole process. Through the middle, we go the other way. And the head. Yeah, very nice. Wide through the arms and chest. Deep movement. Well, it's a beautiful late summer, early autumn afternoon here. And I suppose it would be beautiful if it was pouring with rain or thundering and lightning. Just be different. So, wishing you a lovely afternoon, and we'll meditate in 15 minutes. So if you meditate at home in 15 minutes, we'll all be practicing together. And look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you. Thank you, David, Henriette, and Luke.
Thank you.
Thank you.